Okay, I'm back. I'm back. Well, I say for you, it's the next moment. I've actually done an entire live stream and had dinner between the last part and this part, so excuse the continuity error. I'll try to keep the volume as high as possible by holding the mic close to here. You might just have to boost the volume with your own speakers. Sorry about that. I've really looked to see what the problem is with the volume. I've checked all the settings and all the apps, and on my control panel, I can't see what's wrong. I've also tested the microphone on other apps, and it seems to work okay. So it's an OBS problem. I'll see if I can sort it out. Anyway, where were we? Right. The third hour. Let us proceed immediately to Charles from Project Camelot, who said on Ukraine live stream invasion, does this mean we should start calling you Red Jones, Baboon Tish? They call it, Blue Bean says they call him Emlyn-Jones, do they? Oh my goodness, I'm sure I'll be called that at some point. Hatchie, oh Ben, murder, mystery and suspense, Hollywood, lol, certainly makes interesting reading if one takes the time to do a bit of research. And one doesn't need to look far, like under one's nose, to smell Follow the Money from Lincoln, JFK, Gaddafi, oh dear. Didn't pick up Floyd's Ding Money. Time to look after one's own folks. Putin's a very intelligent man. So is a good old Joe LMOAA. It is corrupt as well. You use lots of punctuation marks in rows between these things, and I can't quite follow you there, Hatchie. But you're talking about Follow the Money. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's to do with the fact that Russia is now buying gold. I think that's a very important point. I wrote an article about it just recently, which I'll show you. There you go. Here we go. Russia banks in gold. Check out that article. It's a very short read, but it says a lot and it explains a lot. Yeah, that's always... Other countries that do that don't end up too well, do they? You mentioned Gaddafi, Lincoln, JFK, yeah. Same video, Hatchie. Ben, ancient technology, it's always been here. The powers that be, that just ain't grasped it all yet. Let's thank our creator for that. As for hated leaders, it takes a war for them to be hated, then loved. Let's go. Thatcher and the Falklands. Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? War is just what unpopular leaders need. Lol, now it's time for Boris, love him. Thank you for false freedoms. I loved my grandfather, World War II and all that. LMLO land, so would he. Lamau land, all right. Now, Boris, I don't think anything Boris could do could save him, actually. I did wonder, you know, he's not like the president in Wag the Dog. Same video. Anyone out there having a piss took out of your own intelligence when they woke up, they will shoot us. We should not be that clever as having any of what they call understanding. Oh, let's have an alien invasion. It'll be better than the cinema. Lamau, they might start shooting us soon. Who'd have thought? It's here. Piss taking out us, Uncle Joe, as in public. Caesar, Planet of the Apes, Miss KBS Ben, fight on. All right. I didn't quite understand all of that, but I miss KBS too. I miss Kev. But if you're suggesting there may be a fake alien invasion, I agree. Hatchie continues on with another comment. On the same video, by God, it's a reply actually. By golly, Ben, it's come a long way from Sylvia and Jerry Anderson. Are the mysterious about to show themselves out of the dark and into the light? I think you referring to that UFO thing. Yeah, that was good, that. And all that hoodwink stuff. Lefau. Never as mortal men have I felt so misled, and it gets worse. They want us to sacrifice ourselves like our grandparents. Surely enough is enough? Oh yeah, John Lennon got shot for wanting to give peace a chance. Oh, back in the USSR, Lamau. Surely any sane person would want to help and nurture one another in life, not kill it. Well, this is why they have to jump through so many hoops to keep us at each other's throats. They have to come up with very, very elaborate charades, like in the Wag the Dog scenario. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Steve Mumbling says on Ukraine livestream, a news report from Ben World, where the Russians are fluffy and the Queen of England is a shape-shifting lizard from outer space. As usual, complete and utter rubbish. Well, you know I don't agree on either of those points, Steve. And Charles says, aha, the story has shed a layer of scales, though. The Queen died some time ago, and the one you have now is a deep fake CGI approximation. Our Ben is also going to teach Sufon the error of their ways and change their minds about Gary and Kaz. Well, as far as the Queen goes, it's quite possible she has gone to that reptile house in the sky, and they're waiting for the right moment to mention it. Gally Lucy thinks it'll be sometime in the summer. I never mentioned Gary and Kaz at Sufon, actually. Well, I had private conversations with some of the members about them, but didn't bring it up in my talk. I think I taught them the error of their ways in other ways, though. I mean, I taught skeptics the error of their ways. David Smith. Oh, the king of sarcasm. Don't believe what you see in the news, Steve. It's full of misinformation. But Putin, a genuine, honest guy, just trying to fight the New World Order, no doubt. So leaving your sarcasm aside, David, that's actually true. Steve mumbling. I don't think Sufon will... This is to Charles. I don't think Sufon will take someone who seriously believes the Queen of England is a shape-shifting lizard from outer space too seriously. Well, if you watch the video, Steve, you'll see that they did. Steve mumbling says it under here. Yes. Yeah, to David Smith. Yes, the last thing he would do is knock off all his political opponents. Charles says to Steve, good job this is a hobby and not a business for our Ben, because the past couple of years haven't been too good on him. Kaz Clark keeps getting blacklisted for her constantly changing story and fits of rage. Nick Pope morphed into Albert Steptoe. Ben published a bluff article in UFO Truth magazine, and Richard Dolan tried to steal his girlfriend right in front of him. All right, firstly, as you know, I don't agree with you about Kaz. I think Kaz is a very credible person. Nick Pope is Albert Steptoe. The years have not been kind to him, have they? I didn't publish a bluff article in UFO Truth magazine. It was actually, I've published a couple of really good ones. The most recent one was about the subject of the live stream, the Los Angeles invasion. Richard Dolan did, I don't know if he tried to steal my girlfriend in front of me. He was sort of like talking to her over me, and that was very rude, I thought, yeah. And Ukraine live stream, Discerning Consciousness podcast. Thanks for sharing, Ben. The EU just banned all Russian planes from their airspace. The West keeps provoking Russia. How far are they prepared to push? I hope this is all just smoke and mirrors. Me too, DCP. I do too, yeah. Yeah, all Russian planes can't fly over anywhere in Europe now, except Switzerland, which is a landlocked country, which doesn't really help unless the planes can be carried over the other countries on some kind of space rocket. Ukraine live stream, David Smith. Admit it, Ben. If the aliens do exist, there's no way they'd want anything to do with us. We are a shambles of a race. Believe it or not, David, that's probably true. Or at least they're handling us. They're dealing with us in a very. They're dealing with us very carefully. Put it that way, keeping us at arm's length. Ukraine live stream. The corrupt governments and corporations, banksters, cabal all benefit from conflict. Massive wealth and power grab. Yeah, look, Ukraine has suddenly turned into the biggest ammunition dump in the world. It is a massive 1.6 million square mile arsenal. The military-industrial complex is piling its stuff on there and making billions of it. Markey continues. The hidden hand controls all, and normal humanity on all sides are the ones who suffer. I do not back any side, and the propaganda is high. I just want to see this calm down before it's seriously sketchy at present, as it's seriously sketchy. Marky, I agree, I do. I really want to see an end to this. I understand the need to clean up Dodge, but this is just... I hope Putin knows what he's doing. Marky says here, the inflation, energy prices, food shortages, etc. are caused by ludicrous lockdown rules, and they'll be blamed on this conflict. Terrorist cyber attacks will be blamed for an internet blackout. Cyber Polygon Schwab has his hands all over this. Suddenly, the enemy is no longer the unjabbed or unmasked, but the Russians. The sheeple have already forgotten their COVID fear blanket and are focused on Ukraine as their new normal. Unfortunately, Marky, yes. That's exactly what has happened. Yeah, there'll be some kind of... I think cyber attacks are quite likely. It may cause maybe internet blackout, but also maybe even electricity supply failure. And food shortages, etc. And a lot of it is going to be the hangover from the lockdown, yeah. Elizabeth Clayton says on Ukraine live stream, nice one, Ben. Lots goes over my head, but still a great watch. Thanks, Elizabeth. Apollo Detectives 10, debunking the debunkers. Brett Riverboat. If we're ever going to see the aliens coming out of hiding, is now, when we're on the Zoid of nuclear war, which is coming very soon as Putin won't back down. Well, I hope it won't. I hope it won't come to some kind of massive standoff. If so, if the aliens want to come and lend a hand, I won't say no. Yeah. Charles says here, well, now you've done it. I've been watching How I Infiltrated a Bizarre Conspiracy Cult. Have you? Yes, I've seen it. I've watched that. It's from Vice, isn't it? How I Infiltrated a Conspiracy. It's a cult. It's the super soldier people. It's this guy here called, where is it? Yeah, Oki's Weird Stories. That's right. It's a little, it's a short one, but it's
300 for that and 2,000 for this.
Ads. Let's see. It's on a website called called Oki's Weird Stories. Oki is spelled O-K-I. It's about this guy here. And I don't. I did. Oh, I put a comment on here. Yes, all very amusing, I'm sure. You well and truly got all the low-hanging fruit, but the secret space program has a more serious side. Check out Michael Schratt, Mark McCandlish, and Andrew Johnson, and checktheevidence.com. There, that's the comment I put on it. But yes, I have seen it. I have seen it, Charles, and I thought it was bloody awful. Well, we have now Diego Vera. Great debonking, Ben. It is time NASA came clean. Keep bonking the debunkers. Well, I don't bonk the debunkers unless they're good-looking ladies like that. What's her name? Ooh, the one who was riding on a rocket. Oh, what's her name? Charles says, which parts were great? And it is Diego Vera. All of it debunks the Apollo landings. Charles, not the debunks, anything but debunks. Oh dear. Same video, Sue Hayward Tonkin. Very interesting. Thanks, Sue. Wag the Dog Party introduction. Watch party introduction. Gary Robinson. Strangely enough, Ben, mate, I only just watched this the other day. I can't help thinking about it every time I read the Daily Mail for obvious reasons. P.S. First. Well done, Gary. You got in there before the Charlester. And, yeah, it's. I'm glad you have the same attitude towards it as I do. Ravenhill, Wag the Dog introduction. That's the first watch party. Ben, mate, can you give reassurances that Russia won't attack Britain? We're pretty worried here. I'm afraid I can't, Ravenhill. I'm sorry. I think it's unlikely, but who knows? I don't know how this is going to end. I hope it won't come to that. This may even be a catalyst for some massive change, but I don't know. FX Surfer says, they won't. Turn off your TV. Steve, mumbling. What's terrifying here is you value Ben's opinion. That's not terrifying. That's great. Rick Howden on the same video. The rant of the blind preacher in They Live is wonderful stuff. Yeah. And I say underneath in text, that's an idea for a third watch party. Someone did actually suggest Wag the Dog. They Live as a watch party, which we'll do probably sometime in a couple of weeks. Gary Robinson. Ben, mate, do you ever get the feeling that the debunkers will sit through... This is on Apollo Detectives. Hours and hours of shows like the Apollo Detectives and come up with an explanation for every single argument, and yet they call us tinfoil hat-wearing nutters. At some point, the normies are going to realise it's the desperate attempt at debunking that are thin on the ground, and not our questioning of the official story. Yeah, I think that there's already a sign of that. That really the other side, the pro-NASA side, are the ones who are starting to sound the most cultic and doctrinaire. So I think it's becoming more and more obvious. And Phase 2012 says to Gary, in quoting me, quotes me. He quotes Gary here and he says, it's just the first sentence of his post I just read out. I sat through 10 minutes of Raza Vihari's recent video. He was totally unaware of the fact, capitals, that the Redstone ICBM, used for the first 2 Mercury flights, were incapable of putting up the capsule with astronauts into low Earth orbit, which is why the first 2 flights were suborbital hops. They went up to 100 kilometers and thus into space. before coming back down. The third Mercury flight with John Glenn made it into Earth orbit because the Redstone was replaced with the more powerful Atlas. Raza Vihari was totally unaware of this fact and kept talking about the USA's inability to orbit a spacecraft. I knew that they were actually using ballistic missile rockets at first, and basically putting a manned capsule on the top instead of a warhead. But that's anyway. Let's carry on. Sorry. Raza Vihari in the video continued to refer to the direct ascent method of reaching the moon, as shown in a 1955 episode of Disneyland, as a more practical method of reaching the moon. The proposal involved the building of a heavy lift rocket larger than the Saturn V, the Saturn Nova, which would be needed to launch dozens of times to take all the components for the space station up to low Earth orbit to be assembled. The process would have taken over a decade and required tens of billions of dollars before building and fueling a spacecraft to send to the moon. The LOR method made DA unnecessary. It enabled NASA to meet the end of this decade requirement. Well, phase, it's really weird because everyone was talking about how the need to build a craft in space. Arthur C. Clarke wrote it was actually serialized and ended up in one of his short story books. It was serialized in a newspaper called Journey to the Moon, I think it was called, or something like that, where they basically they go to the moon from a low Earth orbit space station. It's a good story, actually. I quite like it. It's written, I think, in the mid-1950s. Raza Vihari also mentioned that Werner von Braun either had plans for a nuclear-powered shield to protect astronauts from all the non-existent deadly radiation of space. It's not non-existent, though, is it, Faze? And besides, what wasn't there now was not known when they were planning Apollo. She quotes Gary Robinson. At some point, the normies are going to realise desperate attempts at debunking are thin on the ground are not our questioning of the official story. And Faze replies, in a recent AD video, that's Apollo detectives, they made a huge, capitals, fuss over the shadow of a tripod, quote-unquote, that can be seen on the ground in front of the Apollo 17 rover after the ascent of the Apollo 17 LEM. None of the detectives, capitals, can work out what it is. I knew what it was straight away. It's extremely obvious. The answer is on my channel and has been for some time. As far as I know, the ADs haven't worked it out. Yes, at times I do get the impression you're all tinfoil hat-wearing nutters. Oh, let's have a look at this bloke. Let's have a look at his channel. Oh, right. Oh, here we go. Oh, wicked. I've got a sub to him now. I've got a sub. I've got a sub to him. This is going to be hilarious. Oh, there's loads of videos about us. There's pictures of me. There's Marcus. There's Neil. Oh, wow. Oh, I've got to see this. Oh, God, I've got to check out this. It's Phase 52012. I've got to check that out. All right, Phase. I will. Gary. Oh, Jim Skin Pivot says underneath. He just quotes Gary again about that some point stuff. And at some point, you hoax nuts will realize that the so-called hoax material only ever comes from post-mission perusal of imagery. It never read more. It never gives a crumb of anything related to the colossal planning and logistics of how this was all faked multiple times prior to the flight. But it does, though, Jim. That's the point. We talk about the feasibility of it being faked, the reasons why, the means, motives, and opportunity. He carries on. Here's what else is missing from the nutball side. What's the actual scientific case for moon flights being impossible once, let alone 6 times? At what point do you explain the lack of a single "that's impossible" statement from any science entity at that time? How did NASA compel multiple astronauts? Oh. Hang on, oh dear. Do we have to go through this again? There's James Van Allen and his statements. There's the stuff that Philip Coots has talked about in Nexus magazine. I mean, we covered this on this series. How did NASA compel multiple astronauts to take individual responsibility for shouldering the world's greatest alleged hoax? Apollo men were in the main combat vets and test pilots, not given to risk their reputations on a scripted scam, which would ultimately see them branded compliant cowards. Jim, I suggest you watch the Milgram experiment. Look up on the Milgram experiment, will you? Also look at the stuff about all the other research done into tacit complicity. He carries on. If Sabrell is a credible inquirer, why have none of the hoax brigade accepted that his own verification standard was met when Cernan, Bean and Mitchell swore on his Bible? Well, I think we did mention that, actually, at some point. I don't know. Bart has only been in a couple of these, I think. How do you fake 4 billion year old geology containing no Earth pollutants, but with helium-3 present in the isotope profile, as Apollo rock is analysed hundreds of times a year independently? That level of fakery and control over international academia requires quite an extensive evidence-based thesis. Where is it? Well, you're suggesting that somehow we're claiming that there are no real moon rocks on the Earth. Well, there are. We know that. I mean, it's not a secret that Apollo is not the only source of real moon rocks. The Russians have gathered some and brought them back. Some of them actually end up here when they're knocked off the moon by asteroid impacts. I'm not suggesting there aren't real moon rocks. Ironically, as Jarrah White explained in an earlier episode of the Apollo Detectives, one of the Apollo missions brought back some moon rock, and it was discovered, amazingly, to have originated on the Earth. And then they explain this by saying, well, it must have been a piece of Earth geology that was knocked off the Earth by an asteroid impact in the ancient past. And it landed on the moon, very rare piece of mineral, and just by pure chance, incredibly bad luck, the Apollo astronauts picked that up as a sample. I know, everyone's going to say, you see, this is where I come onto the whole coincidence thing on Sufon. Because someone will say, well, that's bad luck, it's a coincidence. They will bloody say it. Anyway, that was a few Apollo Detectives ago. He carries on. The only description I keep seeing of Muppets like Ravi Shankar here, are you talking about Raza? Use his proper name, please. Who, as he makes clear more than once, is merely voicing an opinion based on what he sees as in isolation. As with all hoax nut material, it is a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and always completely lacking a contiguous narrative and converging evidence. No, it's not. Everything about Apollo can be explained with science and evidence from before, during, and after every mission. I agree, and it explains through science and evidence that we should be questioning the official story. And from countless converging directions. The hoax is rooted in post-mission opinion, ignorance, and that common desire among naughty boys to be seen as something other than a normie, and willing at least applaud those claiming to be smarter than the planet's 73 space agencies. Oh, interesting little bit of amateur psychology there, Jin. Seriously, Gary, grow the fuck up. Oh, shut up. Gary, say whatever you like to this twat. Here we go. Right, here we are now on... Where are we now? Steve Mumbling. I knew he was going to say something about this. This is on Apollo Detectives. I had a very quick flick through this steaming pile. I would have to ask Raza why he's involved in a nuclear fusion project when he's already told us free energy is real, and he's working on a free energy project that delivers over 10 megawatts. He calls Curious Droid a clown. It appears wearing cat ears. So what is he wearing? And also, maybe I don't know why he's involved in a nuclear fusion project. I actually had to leave before the end of this one, and the bit at the end where I'm speaking was actually filmed earlier on. Ah, Neil Peel. We knew that the hat would draw comments. Yes, Steve to Neil. So what's your response? It clearly shows Raza is full of crap, doesn't it? You seem to be short of a few defectives, Neil. PMSL. Neil says, why would I say that when it's in fact it's you? When in fact it's you. You know, of course, the instant that the LEM flipping its transmitter antenna to the other video, which you said they clearly referred to in the film. Well, it's not live audio, is it? Steve. I showed the clip of the sticky servo on the S-band antenna and provided the live audio when they commented on it. Debunked, Neil, get over it. Jim says to Steve, I've seen some crap from Apollo deniers over the years, but Ravi Shankar here takes the crown. Jim, I suppose you think you're witty, do you, calling him that? Charles. Neil to Neil. Neil, me old fruit. You talk as if you'd won some kind of victory. You didn't. Neil to Steve. So explain to me how the live audio gets onto the soundtrack of 16mm film, please. Neil then says to Charles, I didn't realise you were elected judge. Well, we know what judges get up to behind closed doors. Charles to Neil, I don't need to be elected. I'm judged by default. Oh, of course, yeah, he's the man, isn't he? He does people, man. He does them. Neil to Charles. Fault being the word that stands out as a major credential. Charles to Neil. My name is the credentials in all things, end of story. Neil to Charles. Thank God it's the end of your story. It was always tedious. Jin to Neil. So explain to me how the live audio got onto the soundtrack of a 16mm film, please. Assuming you refer to the Apollo 11's lunar liftoff, the continuously recorded audio is matched to the film by the timed mission steps, such as pitch over, manual override off and shut down, called out visual sightings of surface features, the real-time telemetry of the vehicle's state vector. That is, of course, speed, altitude, and and its physical location relative to MSFN. What's MSFN? Neil says to Jin. This is a long one. Not welcome. You missed the point completely. 16mm film is recorded without an audio track. Usually in the case of filmmaking, a sound recordist captures the audio on a reel-to-reel quarter-inch magnetic tape, usually also having on hand a clapperboard to record the snap sound of the clapperboard, which is also filmed by the camera before a scene. Later, an editor syncs up the audio using the clapperboard audio and visual shutting of the clapperboard. I used to wonder why they did that, you know. It was Matthew Williams who explained it to me. The sound is transferred to the print later on, and then made into many prints. So the point is that any audio can be added to the print. Foley artists, for instance, would add a sound effect of gunfire in a Western movie. Does not mean a real gun was fired. So the Apollo chatter was added on later on, and that chatter can say any narrative you want. Jin to Neil. No, it's you that's missed the point. Audio transcripts and timings were published immediately after each flight, and most were pretty close to the promulgated task program in each pre-published flight pan. Key parts of the mission were also published and available to buy throughout the 70s, usually on 8mm amateur loops with or without sound. The only audio they could add was that acquired mid-mission and published shortly after their return. If you have some other material where the audio seems error with the footage and or the 1969 transcript, you should point it out, Neil. That'd be quite novel after all these years later. Jin to Neil again. Just to decide, do you use this any audio could be faked and added later response to sound recordings and films of supernatural encounters, Neil? Or do you just accept it as genuine right up front? Just asking. Well, I know, Jin, from Neil, I'll just interject here. Neil is actually quite sceptical with a C rather than a K. In other words, he's like investigative, you know, he goes with evidence. And in fact, Neil says to Jin himself, I'm always skeptical as anything in film and the video and has such claims. It does not mean they're fake, it means further analysis needs to be made. Jin to Neil. I tend to agree, but the usual hoax nuts who openly accepted Bart Sabral's claims of prompted clues for Astros to talk in Apollo 11 audio, just as they accepted Jim Irwin's thrown canister tape sitting the LEM when his position at the MESA made to throw physically impossible. If you're going to apply the evidentiary standard, that is a little more than evidence-free opinion. It needs to be consistent. Hoaxes can selectively claim published audio as proof of fakery, and that published audio, Apollo audio, can be faked, but only by NASA, or whenever they wish to apply bias in this location. Neil says to Jen, however, NASA have official films where you can hear the clunk of hammers. That's true, yeah, more replies here. This is going on a bit more. Jin, so what? Why do you find that remarkable? Neil, did I say remarkable? You're putting an interpretation on my words. Kind of funny that NASA removed those particular clips from its Kids Moon website recently, really. I think somebody on later on realised the gap. It's a bit like a letter on photoshopping. So later on, photoshopping more of an even spread of light on the famous Buzz Aldrin photo, yeah, when the original was him under an obvious spotlight with hotspots flaring everywhere. Well, this was actually something Jarrah dealt with on his own channel. It was actually NVIDIA who tried to prove the moon landing's faked. So tried to prove the moon landing's real by analysing the lighting in the Buzz Aldrin descent photo when coming down the ladder. But they lied. They deliberately manipulated the data to make it darker than it should have. Jarrah proved this. Neil, here we go. Neil, I think Jim's going to have the last word now. For now, it's funny actually, that these guys are debating. Well, you mentioned Kaz Clark earlier on. I actually posted a link to Kaz's video on East Anglia UFO, and all the usual crowd came along saying, "No, it was a military exercise. It was a military exercise." And I said, "Well, why don't you watch the video?" And someone literally said to me, they literally said, "I'm not going to waste 59 minutes of my life watching this rubbish." They made a conclusion. They were the ultimate skeptic, right? Reason and evidence, etc. And they just didn't want to know. They didn't want to hear anything else, anything that might prove them wrong. Is that really how a skeptic should behave? As I said in Sufon. It was remarkable, actually. I compared it to the ape in Planet of the Apes, where he's got a paper dart. And one of the other apes said, it flies, try it. And he goes, nonsense. And he screws it up. He doesn't even try it. Sound transmits through gaseous and solid mediums. The vibration of the hammer blows simply propagated through air-filled suits straight to the mic. They didn't remove the clips, they removed the sight. But the films have been available for decades and were and are on YouTube and other sites. The question, could the hammer blow, could the vibration actually have that effect? I think we did cover that and find that it couldn't actually have that effect. There are some other examples, for example, from other space missions where that doesn't happen. There's nothing sinister about the Aldrin photo, or yes there is, or in the fact that many Apollo images were brightened because they had areas of underexposure. Similarly, there are dozens of published photos which debunk all hoaxers claiming photographic perfection on Apollo. Oh, so now they were retouched. Which is it? You were the one, Jin, claiming that we keep changing our stories. Oh no, Steve mumbling, claiming that, not you, sorry, claiming that we keep changing our stories. Now we find out that the Apollo images were retouched. Originally they were told no, there was no retouching. Now it said yes, it was retouching. Which is it? Hotspots are a consequence of either exposure issues or opposition surge, where reflected facets of the landscape bounce back on the reciprocal to the light source. This occurs on snow, sand, tarmac and other surfaces, as we see here. It also occurs on grass. Upping exposure values is actually a key part of photo processing, as is dodging or burning individual areas to achieve balance across an image. Ask any amateur how to expose for a silhouette. You expose for the brightest area in shot, and then anything else comes out black or underexposed. Guessing exposure can result in the opposite. A generally dim subject with a bright areas highlighted because they're overexposed. But you see, Jim, Jarrah White made an entire video about this, because this was not done with Apollo. This was not done post exposure. Post developing at all. This actually came up. This came up actually when Bennett and Percy wrote their original book in the 90s. They did ask about retouching and these various processing methods. No, there was nothing like that was done. They simply took the photo and developed it. And now you're claiming that that didn't happen. So this is you, well, not you personally, but you've obviously heard NASA have changed their story. The spotlight theory is another example of the ignorance of being selective. Point out the hotspot on any long-range vista or footage taken from the LRV in transit, showing all of the surface out to the horizon or the highlands. Neil, well, there's the one on the boot that David Grove spotted. The little white line on the boot, on Aldrin's boot. Remember that? If you can identify a single light source that can uniformly illuminate such areas, what is it? Because an artificial light cannot overcome the inverse square law at surface lunar distances. The sun, however, can easily, because compared to its mass and brilliance, the photographer to horizon distance is minuscule. It's just remarkable just how dim some of you self-published amateurs are. Well, it's not just the sun can do that. A large enough spotlight can do that as well. With a large enough spotlight, you have the same photographer horizon distance, the relative scale. So it could be something like the kind of lights you get at a sports ground. That is perfectly possible. Anyway, it's an interesting thread, that. I'm interested to see if Neil replies. Watch the Wag the Dog. Here we go. Introduction. Discerning Conscious podcast. Great stuff. Thanks, Ben. Good time to build up a DVD collection as their cheapest chips. And I would get them, yeah, just in case, and also DVDs seem as a little bit dated now, and it's all Netflix, man, and online stuff. Well, what do you do if that online source goes down? You don't have your own copy. Get your own copy, guys. Same video, FX Surfer. I watched this first time as NATO bombed Serbia in the Wag the Dog in 1999. Yeah, this was actually the Balkans War that inspired Levinson to make this, and as well as David Icke. My housemates recommended it. They couldn't believe the coincidence with a film that came out 2 years earlier. Yeah. Also, Albania is in the Balkans. It's actually, I think it was because that was where the focus of most of the war in the 90s was. There was the Bosnia crisis, then Kosovo. And then Kosovo, of course, did involve ethnic Albanians within Serbia. That was the whole point. That's why they were all expelled by the Serbians. Apollo Detectives again. Steve mumbling, of course. I didn't see any experts in space exploration when I flicked through this nonsense. Would you please provide some timestamps where these space exploration experts appear? All I saw was an artist, a self-employed dog walker, and a free energy nut. Just a bunch of laymen with worthless opinions as usual. Oh, great sarcasm, Steve. Yeah, I'm not just a dog walker anyway. I do other things. Gardening, house cleaning, things like that. He's not a free energy nut, Grasser. You may be interested in hearing my interview with him on HPANWO Radio. Wag the Dog introduction again. Diego Rivera. The film gives a perfect example of what is going on in Ukraine. Precisely, which is why I chose to do it now. Oh, here we go again. Jim, he's really got a beef, this guy, with this Apollo Detectives. No one claimed the Apollo. No one ever claimed Apollo vehicle flew round the belts. This is impossible for reasons which will become obvious when I trash the protractor theory. Saturn V takes off, then pitches and rolls to the correct flight azimuth for setting the baseline orthographic axes referencing, which gives the vehicle its top, bottom, left and right sides, X, Y, Z, etc., relative to the course and the intercepting trajectory in order to meet the moon. Most Apollo deniers have at some point made the common mistake of treating a two-dimensional drawing a somehow accurate description of what is a three-dimensional orbital path. The EPO, or parking orbit, is set by the precessional path of the moon relative to the equator. This is why we see the large sine wave on Earth orbit maps and the Mercator maps on mission control walls. That's where it goes. Oh, that's where it goes like that, yeah. Which chart the EPO with the splashdown and TLI windows, translunar injection, yeah. The Apollo craft could therefore not possibly avoid the belts, as the only significant gap in their coverage is at the poles. Apollo craft flew the inner upper belts, some spending longer in them than others, but none receiving anything like a dangerous dose of radiation. Well, they were very lucky, weren't they, Jim? Because no one really knew exactly what that risk was at that time. Certainly when they were planning the missions, they didn't, when they were designing the rockets and things like that. This segs nicely to the question none of you jokers ever get to answering while claiming the belts are an impenetrable safety. Just what is the lethal dose at which PhD says it will be received inside the belts on an Apollo transit? Right. The lethal, it's all listed, there's several sources, several authors actually list this. Dark Moon, for example, Bennett and Percy. And they describe the difference between the charged particles of the Van Allen belts and the gamma neutron and X-rays that come from the sun and from cosmic sources. They also make the important point is that it doesn't really matter what PhD says what will be received in the inside belts on an Apollo transit today, because we know an awful lot about the those belts now, their altitude, their thickness, their intensity, and how they fluctuate with the solar cycle. However, in 1961, when Kennedy launched the Apollo program, we didn't know anything about them. They'd only been discovered a couple of years earlier. That's the point. The point is that they played Russian solar flare roulette, basically, and radiation roulette generally. And he's off again. Ginskin Pivot says here, line of sight communication isn't that difficult to understand. Transmit and receive sources must be exposed or visible to each other. This is why Apollo missions all took place on the near side. If they wanted to make a better job of hiding the landing sites, they'd have used the far side and claimed the CSM was the repeater, allowing the dogleg communications. Not really, because would it be necessary? The thing is, like, people have said this, why not turn a telescope on the moon and see if you can see the lens? Well, there's no telescope that powerful. They've apparently been spotted by orbital craft such as the Indian and Japanese missions to the moon and the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. However, as Jarrah White explains in his video, there's no reason to believe those images are real. Jodrell Bank used interferometry to monitor Apollo, a very precise use of engineering and physics principles to listen in on transmissions from very small points of origin. Jodrell had telemetry for Apollo 11 just before touchdown, which includes with the brief check on his hand controller to ensure he had manual input on the attitude hold phase. I've seen the chart, who was it? Who was it who explained that was all wrong? We did address that at some point. It's not what it appears to be. The kind of precision is only obtained by knowing the landing site coordinates and pointing a very large dish with a very significant gain capability at them. You don't get signals from a fake Earth-based source by pointing large, expensive antennas at the moon. But that's what the Parkes Observatory was doing, wasn't it? Why? Because what our friend here conveniently forgets is that by bouncing such a signal off the moon in order to fake it, that kind of output power would also create its own backwards echo through natural atmospheric propagation, and the stronger signal would come before the bouncer arrived off the moon. The method would also play havoc with mission step, live imagery and voice timings, all of which were fully published after every flight. He's talking utter nonsense. I don't think it's actually inconceivable, Jen, that there weren't real rockets, there weren't real craft simulating what was seen on TV. It's perfectly possible there were. These may be craft connected to the secret space program. That could be that is an explanation. You may well be right about that. Jen goes on here. Von Braun mooted huge direct single vehicles long before he knew anything of orbital mechanics and staging rockets. He was a 1940s engineer, fairly well versed in atmospheric ballistic rockets, not a 1960s spaceflight project manager. Well, he built the ballistic missiles, the V2s. Oh, here we go. This is really... Here we go. Steve mumbling. You seem to be well down on defectives, Ben. PMSL. Neil. Well, you can piss yourself laughing because you're at that stage, Steve, but mostly you're doing it without realising it. Well, one of our team had to cancel due to a sudden bereavement. Are you still laughing now? I hope not, yeah. Well, there was just the three of us for that one, I know. Steve. I think the truth is they've seen the light and are embarrassed to be seen with you and someone who believes the Queen of England is a shape-shifting lizard from outer space. How dare you, Steve? I've never said that. I've never talked such nonsense before. The Lizard Queen doesn't come from outer space. She comes from the fifth dimension. And they haven't actually become embarrassed, any more than I delete your comments. You're always accusing me of deleting comments. You're always assuming these things, aren't you? Neil says, no, the truth is, as I see it, you are being discourteous to those who have lost their relatives and know whatever you think, that is the case. Of course, now you won't come on the Apollo Detectives to discuss your angle, and you never will. By the way, the live audio feed to the command module Get Real. The soundtrack on 60mm film is always added later on and can be anything, not just what you think is live audio. This is all edited and spliced together in the editing room. Steve to Neil. You are being discourteous, this is quote, discourteous to those who've lost their relatives. So it's multiple deaths now, is it? You couldn't lie straight in bed, Neil. What about the others? Have they all had a death in the family? You would never have me on the defectives anyway, you know that. You'd get ripped to pieces. Is Weaver going to withdraw his arse paper? Neil to Steve. Well, for your education, it is one person, and the way I refer to those is a polite way without identifying the person concerned. So no, I'm not lying about that either. You have no compassion or respect and are very rude. So with that in mind, we will rake you over the hot coals and put your Apollo myth to bed. And you with it along with your dumb ass attitude. We will have you on if you're brave enough, so come on, explain your live recording over the command module with the floppy antenna. You know that 16mm film camera does not record sound on it. The audio is later added to the magnetic audio track and mixed down and processing when the final print is made. That's why films, they have a clapperboard so they can match up. Yeah, we've been through that. So Neil's repeating the point he made earlier. And of course you could dub anything you want over the accompanying footage, even Apollo astronauts. Steve to Neil, no bravery is required to take on you lot. You're completely clueless. I'll believe it when it happens. Neil to Steve. So you ignore the issue of the bereavement, brave of you. You ignore the issue that all the Apollo 60mm films have their soundtracks later added to them in post-production, brave of you. Steve to Neil. And how many questions do you ignore, Neil? Neil to Steve. When I can, and I remember to try and answer the questions, but you're ducking the family death one now by saying how many questions I do ignore. Do I ignore? Means you are agreeing that you have ignored the points I made, and yet you seem to think that by saying there was 3 of us, that it was some kind of disaster. You forget then in your videos we have totted up a number of partakers in yours, and that is 1. Steve to Neil. I don't believe there was a family death. Do I believe the defectives are beginning to see the truth? Do I believe they would consider being seen with you and Ben as an embarrassment? Steve, there was, all right? So shut your mouth. There was. Neil to Steve. So you want the death certificate uploaded then? Well, it's not my bereavement and not in my possession to do so. But also, I'm not going to say who's been affected, but I'm sure Ben will have something to say on this. So the audio of the 16mm film then. Care to comment? Tumbleweed? Steve to Neil. I don't know any of you personally, let alone your family members. I really couldn't care less. Neil to Steve. Yes, that comes across very strongly. You care more about the tin can rockets to the moon than people. How very humbling mumbling. Steve to Neil. Wakey, Neil, you've used the death in the family excuse before. Why would one death in a family prevent all the other defectives from attending the usual crap fest? It's nonsense, isn't it? You must think I'm stupid as you are. Honestly, Steve, I would just apologise if I were you, because someone did lose a loved one. They lost their beloved relative, and they're very fond of them, and that's why they couldn't attend. Don't worry, this person will be back. Ukraine invasion live stream. Charles. Putin blew up the Antonov 225. Only one of those were ever made. Is that big one? Is that the massive big plane? The biggest in the world? I think you mean another one. There's all sorts of, as I explained, there's all sorts of rubbish associated with that thing, that event. Charles on Apollo Detectives. Enough with this Masonic blathering nonsense. The one and only reason systems of symbolism were invented was because the vast majority of society were completely illiterate. The reason the Roman Empire was so successful was because the pleb classes were deliberately kept illiterate, so they couldn't plot against their masters. Later it became a code language, due business, competition and persecution, not to hide dark secrets. Well, it might have served both purposes, you know. TK. Oh, there's a timestamp here.
Mathematics to prove this, you know. I'm not going to go into that now, but it's a very interesting point, you know.
Oh, that's the Heiligenschein. That's the little bright spot around a shadow. You see, yeah. There's mathematics to prove this, but I'm not going into that right now. Yeah, pin your argument to the maths, but don't go into the maths. Yeah. All right, TK, it's up to you. Diego Rivera, Apollo Detectives. The Apollo moon hoax was based on the book by Jules Verne. Now, the book is called Voyage to the Moon, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I don't think Jules Verne did write that book, but I can't. I've read Journey to the Centre of the Earth and what was it, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea? What's it called? 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I've never read the Moon one. Eddie O, 1968 says on Apollo Detectives, what does Raza have to say about the Chandrayaan-2 images? Oh, is this the bloody... Right, hang on. Oh, it's... Pixar it did... Oh, right. This is Bertie Slack. Oh, Bertie Slack, I've heard of him. I think he's... Oh, it's another Apollo Detectives thing. Yeah, Jarrah White made a video about this, actually, and explained how there's no reason to think this actually was real. You can't say for certain that this was real. I forgot. He hasn't got all the details. All right, Bert.
Did the Apollo detectives really think that Chandrayaan-2 would contradict LRO and cast doubt on the Apollo landings?
But how do we know they weren't? How do we know? This is not Bertie Slack. I'm familiar with Bertie Slack because he's the one who's always going after Hunchbacked. But anyhow, how do we know they didn't come from the same source? I suppose everyone is in on the hoax except you guys. What will that be? Ultimate conclusion? Oh, I suppose because one's Indian. I said one's Indian, one's Japanese, one's American. Well, that goes back to why didn't the Russians blow the whistle? Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't feel comfortable actually being the one who actually comes out and has to say it. It's like the Milgram experiment. You know, you can't. If someone says you just have to continue, you just have to continue. More than 90% of people in the Milgram experiment went on to press the big red button, delivering the fatal electric shock. This is no different, anyhow. Just because one's in India and one's in Japan, are they really going to come forward and say we have proven the Apollo mission's incorrect? Do you really think? Do you realise what that would involve? Yeah. Lisa says, watched it the other day. This is on Wag the Dog introduction. Looking forward to the watch party, Ben. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, Skeptics 2022 at Lufon. At Sufon. Skeptics 22 at Sufon, yeah. And Charles says, left it for 10 minutes and no one claimed it, so first comment. You see, Charles, even when he waits, he's still getting there first. Oh, the crafty nihilist is back. Hooray. David says, David Splendid Isolation. Call of Duty is more exciting. Oh, charming. And Crafty says, are you a robot? Do you ever sleep? Are you Ben's personal algorithm? I think Charles is, you know. You don't think he ever sleeps. And Charles says, oh, sorry. I've just screwed up sleep cycles due to jet lag. Crafty to Charles, is that a lie? Charles to Crafty, no. Crafty to Charles, oh. Charles to Crafty, I've been looking after an elderly relative in declining health for 10 years. So I'm flying between Massachusetts and the UK multiple times a year. Oh, right, Charles, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope they're all right. But get marooned for longer than I wanted while COVID struck. But yeah, I'm usually on a weird sleep cycle. Crafty nihilist to Charles. Well, I was not expecting that. God, that must be exhausting. Charles to Crafty. I don't mind doing it really. The flight is when I get to sleep. All right. Well, Charles, I do hope they're all right. You know, they're lucky to have someone who travels so far to look after them. Dark Corners UK says on Skeptics 2022, second. Well done. Silver medal to Dark Corners. Lisa Cry Freedom says on Sufon, all that dosh for an off-peak ticket. Someone's having a fucking laugh. And making a mint, eh? Just watching Ben. You should have pre-booked it months ago. It would have been a quarter of the cost. Yeah, I know. I'm not even gonna bother. I'm gonna go by coach next time, I think. Gary Robinson. Third place is the Losers Club. I don't know, Gary. You get a bronze medal. Gary Robinson. 100 quid to catch a train from Oxford to Swansea is crazy money considering you don't get a guaranteed seat. It's not really that far. You can fly to Mexico to the USA for a few hundred. Oh, no. I did feel really ripped off. I really did. Skeptics 2022. Sonara's Ashtray. How you doing, Sonara? The thing is, I've noticed on trains recently is they don't give you a minute's peace. Constant announcements, life-changing at an unbelievable pace. I know. It's unbelievable. Thanks for commenting anyway. Thank you. It's very stressful indeed. And David says, like an NHS hospital ward. Yeah, pretty much. Sufon, Yarlan Zay. Replace us by robots and turn us into one. Lots of memories of Reading Station. Do you remember back in the 90s there was a TV show called Crime Traveller with Nick Berry from EastEnders in it? They filmed most of it around Reading, including the station. And no, I don't remember that one. There were some good TV shows in the 90s, though. Sufon, Charles. For $93, you're supposed to take the one with wings, not the one with wheels. Honestly, I flew to, was it Glasgow for less than that? Yeah, it was about 65 to go to Glasgow on a plane. Charles says on Sufon, I take it Gary and Kaz weren't invited. Unfortunately, no, and they didn't want to go. And there has been, as you know, a split between Gary and Kaz's mission and the Sufon crew. Sufon, Charles. This is a Heinemann quote here. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. It's as simple as a simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference how beautiful your guess is. It doesn't matter how smart you are, who made the guess, or what its name is. If you disagree with the experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it. Richard Feynman. Yeah, exactly, Charles. Yeah. Richard Feynman, actually, he was the kind of pop scientist I would have liked. You know, as opposed to Professor Brian Cox. You know. David Smith says, he says that, but, quote, insert argument against pseudo-skepticism here. Well, I didn't do that, did I, David? If you're going to get smart with me, you make your predictions wrong. Dr. Respect says here we go. On Sufon. No one ever dies. Death is just a transformation. I sometimes find it strange that people do not notice how the whole of reality works. And if you try to mention it, you're called names, even with evidence that is irrefutable to the person, without the need for books or people telling them. It is shown to everyone every day of their lives, yet not many see it. I will try to explain. No matter what you can think of, everything comes in cycles, and all the cycles, no matter which, have the exact same patterns. When all the cycles complete, they restart. We have the start of a cycle, the peak of the cycle, and the decay of the cycle, and eventually the end of the death of the cycle, and the cycle repeats. This is quite a long comment, but he gives the example of the cycles of the moon. They all go through the same pattern, albeit different lengths of time, in the same way, and end in darkness. Now, this is a fact. So if a year is made up of so many days, your life is made up of so many years, and so many years make up humanity. Then when did humanity start? Now we know all cycles end in darkness and then repeat. The end of all cycles is also forgetfulness, tired, sleepy, horror, evil, lies, deception, Satan, materialism, greed, hate, death, cold, cannibalism. It seems the world is a very dark place right now, doesn't it? Possibly the darkest it'll ever get for humanity. And as I said, the darkness only comes at the end of all cycles. So what's at the start? Idealism, light, love. That's interesting, Dr. Respect, because that's not unlike the the Hindu great calendar, where they go from the ages. So we're in the Kali Yuga, we move over to the Satya Yuga or the Arya Yuga, the Golden Age, the Age of Nobility. I think so. That's very interesting you said that. There's said to be something called the Diamond Age in between, or that's what the Brahma Kumaris people say. And it's coming sooner than most think, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it, like trying to stop the cycles of the year or the cycles of the day, or even cycles of life. A new day is coming, and it is so bright you'll not even recognize yourself because the vibration is so dense. At the end of its cycles, we only see materialistically. The term wake up implies you are asleep, and sleep is what is also happening at the end of all cycles. Well, yeah, that's actually very true. And you know, Dr. Respect, there is an attempt, I think, to bring people to that level, to somehow raise people's consciousness to the level where they can approach it. I mean, as David Icke said, and correctly, if you have the full power, if you subject our planet and this universe to the full power of higher consciousness right now, right here, we'd just be burnt to a crisp. We couldn't cope with it. We need to step up rather like a diver coming out of a decompression chamber, which is what all this stuff is all about. What's going on at the moment? Okay, I'm nearly. Oh, it's 4 minutes, 4 seconds to go. There we are. Okay, guys, that's the end of another hour. So let's stop right now. Okay, I'm back. I'm back again, and hour number 4 now. I told you this would be a long one. Skeptics 2022 at Sufon. Steve Mumbling says at 2:18:10, the guy in the audience is referring to a video I did. Right, what's this one? Right. This is Steve's video, which is opening now.
I'm here in just outside of Peasmore, and I've been looking for this secret alien base.
Oh yes,
all
I've
these people
seen this
keep
one.
talking about.
Yeah, I know the one you mean, Steve. That's not Peasmore. Peasmore doesn't have nice as weather as nice as weather as that, you know. No, that was somewhere in Western Australia, I'm sure. Anyway, a work colleague knew Standeo. He told me he never believed a word he said. Did he? You knew someone who knew Standeo? All right. He used to sell calculators in Perth. He's no NASA scientist. You always deliberately misquote Carl Sagan. The quote is, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You always say, extraordinary claims require extraordinary explanations. Oh, what's the difference, Steve? Just stop nitpicking. Honestly. I think you do this deliberately. You think I do everything deliberately, don't you? Including deleting your comments when I don't. Because you know you can never present any extraordinary evidence. That's completely missing the point. You were actually discrediting this entire point I make just by pointing out they use a different word. What about addressing the actual point I make about the extraordinary evidence, extraordinary claims thing? Why don't you? You never pulled your mate up on trying to find a rational explanation comment. Why was that? Well, I did, actually. I did. Steve, if you listen to my interviews with Steve Mehra, you'll know that I do bring it up at one point. I said, Steve, can I be pedantic for a moment? You know. Yeah. Oh, you mean Steve Drusen? Steve Drusen said the same thing, didn't he? Yeah, well, I think I'd already made that point in the talk, if you're interested. Steve Drusen actually said he used the phrase rational explanation. And, well, it wasn't my place to correct him at that point, I don't think. David Smith says, that got me too. If someone claims they brought a dog, that's something we can accept without worry of it changing the fabric of reality. If someone says they were abducted by bird-like aliens, then that requires a bit more proof before we should accept it. Common bloody sense would tell us what is and isn't extraordinary. No point system needed. Well, yes, it is, Steve. It is, David. You see, it is. Because I don't know how likely is the number of dogs purchased versus the number of times people are abducted by bird-like aliens. That has to be quantified. And until we do, then all the explanation has to be, or the evidence, whichever word you choose to use, it has to be proportional to the claim. And saying something is extraordinary is a purely subjective term. It doesn't say anything about how likely or unlikely it is. I could say it's extraordinary that someone buys a dog. I could say that, couldn't I? Would it be extraordinary? It might be, because the word extraordinary is purely as a subjective, personal assessment of something. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't refer to. It doesn't mean anything quantitatively at all. I think it's a pretty simple point actually, and I made it in the video. Steve Mumbling says to David, "Yes, Ben is a no-hoper living in a dream world, not extraordinary. Ben can fly, extraordinary, simple." Oh, I think you guys were deliberately missing the point. I don't know. Oh, Crafty Nihilist said on Sufon, "We definitely sensed your presence, Ben." Well, it might have been a bout of indigestion. I was right under your feet, wasn't I? Yeah. About 200 feet under your feet, but I was there, yeah. You may have sensed the train going underneath and me going, "Crafties, hello!" Alex Ritchie says on Sufon, "Blue light filtering glasses should be worn on trains, coaches, etc." Would that help? What good does that do, Alex? And Andy G3 says A. Kerry Woolley says Skexis, Ben. Yes, plenty about. Oh, the Skexis was this thing in the Dark Crystal, wasn't it? That Jim Henson thing. Yeah, that was it. Sufon. Sheldrake at TEDx. Oh, yeah. I've seen this one. I've seen this. Yeah, this is a classic. There he is. Ads. The Science Delusion. Rupert Sheldrake at TEDx. Oh, this is good. This is good. Oh, this is good. Oh, too many ads. I've seen it. I know what it says. But thanks, Alex. Great talk, Ben, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Alex. I'm glad you liked it. I'll give you a love heart for that one as well. Alex Ritchie says at Sufon, hopefully that brekkie isn't cooked in rapeseed oil. Fuck the New World Order. Fuck GMOs. Yeah, exactly. I don't know, actually. It's not something I eat regularly anyway, so I'm not that bothered. Winslow Burdett. Hi, Ben. It's always good to watch you on an adventure. It's been a long time since I took a coach somewhere. The last time I travelled any distance on coach would have been in Australia in 2000. No doubt very different Australia than it is now. Yeah, I actually was in Australia myself in 2000, and I took a coach from Sydney to Canberra, which doesn't look very far on the map, but then you realise Australia is about 20 times bigger than Britain. It's actually a long way. The Crafty Nihilist on Sufon. It's 1515. Did David Lynch direct this bit? What's this? Oh, that's the bit where I'm filming out the window. Yes, it was very Twin Peaks, wasn't it? Yeah. There you go, there at Sufon. Skeptics need to be put through skeptic tanks. Funny enough, there used to be a website called the Skeptic Tank, which was sort of for skeptics. He goes on, do you think Richard D. Hall is a skeptic? You need a drum and cymbal effect every time you make a joke. But yeah. Richard D. Hall's, no, he's not a skeptic. He's a believer like me. He's sort of on our, he's completely, well, he disagrees on a lot of the stuff that some of us might talk about, but he is on our side, definitely. Tessa1111, very compelling video, Ben. Felt like I was in the audience, enjoyed it immensely. Thank you. You're very welcome, Tessa. I'm glad you liked it. Neil Peel on Sufon. Was hoping you might have seen a flying platform from the train, Ben. Like that vicar at Uxbridge, on Uxbridge train. Yes, that's right. That's what I covered in my Aldeburgh video. Yeah. Sufon. Neil again. Neil Peel of the Paranormal Peep Show. Kind of strange, Ben, to hear you, a Welshman, speaking with an English accent to your fellow countrymen and women who have Welsh accents. Do you think about that, or does it just pass you by? Funny, because they welcome you having a big, loud Welsh voice. It is a bit odd, isn't it? It's just, I suppose, it's like people, it's where you pick up the accents where you lived. I've lived in Oxford so long, you know. But I still consider myself Welsh. Now, Crafty Nihilist said here, it's a 23041. What's this? Toothbrush. Oh, souvenirs. I can't believe how long you made us wait for the most important scene. Oh, yes, of course. Of course. The souvenirs. No HPANWO TV video is complete without the souvenir shots. Beetlejuice. You're a great talker, Ben. I enjoyed this. It shows the imbalance in the debate in an easy-to-recognise way. Thanks, Beetlejuice. Much appreciated. David Smith. Yeah, one side asking for good evidence and the other side never producing any. Oh, brilliant, David. Brilliant. You've completely missed the point of my video. Just like it's like your comments you made before about extraordinary claims and rational explanations. You're not actually you're taking what I said and you're bringing up an entirely separate point. An entirely separate point. Completely corollary to what I was talking about. Did you watch the video carefully? Ukraine live stream. Diego Vera. There's a video of Zelensky dancing in heels on YouTube. Oh, well, that's misogyny and cultural appropriation. Ah, I don't want to see him in bloody heels. I really don't. Snarnock. Why do you only take your toothbrush and not your toothpaste as well on these trips? Because I'm usually only away for 1 or 2 nights. I don't need toothpaste. It's just an extra thing to carry. And sometimes hotels provide it. So I don't really bother. Sufon Snarnock again. Susan Blackmore's partner is Adam Hart Davis. Yes, that's right. He said in an interview last year that he would not take the V word because he did not understand why anyone would want to put an untested experimental drug into their body. I'm sure he remembers thalidomide. Did he really? I wonder what Susan did. I wonder what was her attitude to the V word. That's odd, isn't it? But Sufon, Steve mumbling. Why do conspiracy clowns love Pine Gap? Why is Pine Gap any weirder than Menwith Hill? They do exactly the same job. Neither involves aliens. Actually, Steve, both involve aliens. It's true, Menwith Hill and Pine Gap are very similar. Pine Gap seems to be more... Pine Gap is in a more kind of... I suppose it's in a more kind of elusive place than Menwith Hill. Both are in quite remote areas, but Menwith Hill is remote by British standards, but that's nothing like Australian standards. Funny enough, I've seen Pine Gap, but I've never seen Menwith Hill. I drove past... I was on a coach going past Pine Gap, and the coach driver and the tour guide told us that about 3/4 of the people in Alice Springs actually work there. It's one of the biggest employers in the area. But if you ask any of them what they do, they just say, "Oh, I'm a storeman, or I'm a janitor, or something like that." They never tell you what they actually do. Okay, we have Sufon, Lee Lesbian. Oh God, it's you again, Lesbian eBay reselling. Oh bloody heck! Here we go. Oh, look, it's the MI5 agent, controlled opposition Ben, the junior porter, infiltrating our circles again. Stop it, mate. Get a backbone. Stop working for the globalists and apologise to all your subscribers who you have been monitoring on behalf of your New World Order masters. And stop complaining about the ticket price. We all know who's really paying for that. Hint, your MI5 handler. Feels good, does it? Infiltrating our events and doing undercover surveillance on us. You're an agent of the New World Order. Look, Richard, I know who you are. I know you're Richard D. Hall. Richard, you don't have to come in to my chat box using a fake female pseudonym. All right? If you want to come and post comments on my video, Richard, you're perfectly welcome to do so under your own name. Just say Richard D. Hall or Rich Planet. Because it's... I don't know why you have to use an avatar of a woman in a pink dress and call yourself some silly name. Come on, Richard. We've known each other a long time. You could be yourself with me. David says to Richard, this totally makes sense now that I think about it. Oh, David, you are now a paranoid conspiratologist shill hunter now, are you? You've gone all drama. You're a shillhead. So David's come over to our side, but not just slightly, completely. He's gone straight to the extreme and become got all shilly, hasn't he? He's got all shilly. Yes, well, Richard there will tell you all about it. Right, here we go. This is a long thread. Ukraine breaking the silence. Ben Colostrom isn't a doctor of anything. He was given an honorary title and stripped of that title for something denial. I can't say that on YouTube. He started out okay, then went completely barking mad. Let's have a look. I mean, he's got a Wikipedia page. Let's have a look. Nick Colostrom, here we go. He does actually have a Wikipedia. Yeah, man. Sorry, it's taking a long time to open. Nicholas Colostrom, born 1946. English historian of science, an author known for the promotion of H denial and other conspiracy theories. He studies natural science at Corpus Christi, Cambridge. Attained a BA and MA in 1968 and then in 1973. He worked from 71 to 76 on the Medical Research Council. He has a BA, Natural Sciences. Oh, he had 1995 PhD History of Science. He has a philosophy doctorate. He is a doctor. And as Cosmic Claire said, he was cancelled for presenting evidence which the people who cancelled him did not refute the existence of. Yes, the truth is no defence, Claire. Charles says, I've grown to hate the word cancelled. Yep, so have I. I don't think people should be cancelled. And Je suis Tadpole says, really? I didn't think he'd been awarded some trifle. So what did Cambridge employ him as? Wasn't it something to do with chemistry? No, he got a PhD in the history of science. And he was later in his career, it was in the 90s, but he did get it. And Charles says to Je suis, his title was Honorary Research Fellow, whatever that means. He wasn't employed at Cambridge, though. And Christopher Marler says he isn't a doctor of anything. And there's this book. There's this. What's this? Oh, this is Newton's Forgotten Lunar Theory. This is one of his books. What's wrong with this? What's this got to do with anything? Read more. He may be a crank, preferring that the something never happened, but unless you can prove that someone else wrote the book, you'll have to explain how he once became a research fellow in the first place. And Crafty Nihilist said, I wish someone would award me with a trifle. That's right. Yeah, I could do a nice strawberry one with ice cream on it. Charles, the title was honorary. He didn't earn it. He was given it. Some very smart people go mad, I guess. Remember that Russian chess player a few years back who became a celebrity in New York and then ended up being chased by the police? Started believing in wild conspiracies about being persecuted. That was Garry Kasparov. He's now like an opposition leader in Russia, Charles. Christopher Marler says, remember that Russian chess player? No, I remember 30 years of EU policies that led to them to double down on ideological rhetoric in the moment of nuclear forces on high alert. And then I mentioned this was in the spam folder, but I freed it. And Charles says, how much was the ransom? I said, just a bit of produce from someone else's organic garden. They're in big trouble. Charles, hamburgers with legs, every single one of them, like a whole town full of Bill Ryans. Charles says, it was public anyway. Channel settings don't work properly for old channels, I assume. All right. Mind powers, Ben. Mind powers. Christopher Marler says that Google priorities lie elsewhere of the interests of creators. The point is that creators can't tell how their channel works because their UI informs them differently. Oh, I can't stand it. I found it annoying with... And I said here, I have several episodes where YouTube's system does strange things. Charles says to Ben, get out of mind, block quickly. Right, a droid card. I did, I blocked that one. I blocked it. That channel. I've seen that one before, actually. Christopher Marler says, oh, it's just more about YouTube and how it works. Yeah, I'm not going to read all this out. Sorry, it's all about technical stuff. YouTube had mentioned in their tutorials casually they have developed automated technology server-side to enforce community guidelines, which means anything if the NSA is embedded in Alphabet Inc., as shown by Snowden and several mainstream outlets back then. Well, yeah. I think they are. I mean, they do monitor us, I think. YouTube itself, I mean, I know I've been shadow banned, yeah. Encourage people to save their comments to local documents and to mail them to you directly so they see that you aren't gatekeeping and dissent isn't fragmented by suspicions, which benefits the official totalitarian narrative. Well, you know, Christoph, I've tried to get people, I've suggested people do exactly that. I said that to Steve Mumbling. I actually had to show him a copy of a comment he said that I deleted, which was basically in my Gmail, because I get copies sent to me. And then he didn't reply. He didn't want to admit he was wrong. That doesn't mean one has to agree with every view, or that there is no personal confusion and wild misconception among dissenters, but that way, speaking about it openly will sort out well-documented claims from the chaff and hearsay and constructs. Yeah, exactly. That's the end of that thread. Okay. Clopite says, on Ukraine breaking the silence, Ben has new wallpaper by the looks of it. Oh, no, it's still the same one, I think. So he does. I like it. Oh, that's my Skype screen. Yeah, my Skype screen. It's actually Wardenclyffe Tower, which is Nikola Tesla's famous experiment at Wardenclyffe-on-Sea, where he built a massive tower for generating energy. It was demolished in 1917 on the orders of the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and J.P. Morgan, who basically screwed Tesla completely. Missy Assert says, oh, welcome, not seen you before, on Ukraine breaking the silence. Autumn 2019, we started hearing rumours, AVIR, that us was imminent. I don't I don't know what AVLR. I don't know what that means this year, but I think this has been planned for a long time. Yeah, the whole 2014 popular uprising, so-called, was actually astroturfed by the CIA. Supreme Enlightened Tramp said, irrespective of political opinions, Putin has murdered political opponents. Enough said. Oh, what, like Alexei Navalny? No, he didn't. He didn't. And same goes for the Skripals. He hasn't. This is all bollocks. This was set up by the German intelligence. Oh, I've done entire programs with Nick about that. Kerry Woolley says on Breaking the Silence, we need to cure propaganda sickness. Yes. Jeff Sperry says on Breaking the Silence, just a flick of the narrative switch is all it takes by lying, corrupt media to direct the sheep onto the next story. They can't think for themselves and swallow the lies and fake pictures without question. Great interview with Nick. I'm sure this story will only get bigger in the near future. I think it will. Thanks, Jeff. Unfortunately, words talking about sheep and things like that, I know it's demeaning, but I used not to do it, but I do now. I can't help it. How else what other metaphor do I use to interpret that kind of behaviour? This is exactly how they behave. They do. Nothing as it seems. The virus goes out and the missile comes in, apropos. Exactly. You've seen that meme too. Very famous one. I'll show it you. If I can find it. Here we go. This is one of the earliest ones. This is hilarious. This is really funny. Yeah, that's what it's like, isn't it? Goodbye, COVID. Hello, missile. Okay. John Nolan. Hi, Ben. This is on Silence. Michael told Kerry Cassidy it's the Germans on her show this week. Yeah, Michael Shrimpton, I think you mean. Yeah, I didn't see that, but I know his position on this. I do know his position on this, and he does blame German intelligence for this. Problem with Michael is he thinks the Germans do everything. I mean, he thinks. I think he must think Sabine Hossenfelder is like the whore of Babylon or something. Caroline McGreal, thanks for sharing, Ben. Do you know that Trump brought in warp speed for the J words? That's the jibby jabs. Also allowed 5 grapes infrastructure into America. There's no man-made political solution for spiritual solution, Ben. The hidden hand owns both sides. The only answer to mankind's spiritual problems, through repentance of our sin in our lives and having faith in and following God's Yah's, that's God's salvation through his Son, the Redeemer, Yeshua HaMashiach, that's Jesus Christ, the Messiah. Yeah. I don't share your religious beliefs, Caroline, but I mean, I think Jesus was a very good person. And you are right about the spiritual problem and a spiritual solution. I do agree with you on that. However, I think you're wrong about Trump. Trump was one man who did what he could against the depth and rancidness of the swamp that he never even understood when he used those words. It's a credit to his courage that he didn't turn away when he discovered the truth. Yeah, but I think you're wrong about Trump. I think Trump is a spiritual man. I mean, he's not any kind of messiah, but I do believe in the great man hypothesis of history. I do. Je suis Tadpole. Always good to hear from Nick. Thank you so much, Ben. You're welcome, Je suis. You're welcome. I'm glad you like that. That's Breaking the Silence. This is Breaking the Silence. Brett Riverboat. Funny how the C word has disappeared out of the news. Yeah, it's been... Firstly, there was an emergency stop on the whole agenda. Then, as the Ukraine thing blew up, the C word was it's very quietly moved off stage, wasn't it, while the audience weren't looking. Yeah, it's almost gone now, yeah. Christopher Mahler, Breaking the Silence. I watched this on Odyssey, a conversation well done, reasonably informed about historical backgrounds, realistic national security concerns by Russia, and the explosion of Western hypocrisy towards the suffering of the people of the Donbass and Crimea. The outlook into an alternative history along an extended German Ostpolitik in the 1970s is heartwarming. The reason why it didn't happen, Halford Mackinder's grand strategy of the Anglosphere. geographical pivot of history, coordinated by the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chatham House, and involving the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations. Oh, them again, yeah. Them again. That's an interesting thing, yeah. Extended German Ostpolitik. I'm not familiar with this period of history. So, Christoph, I'm not familiar with this period of history, but Halford Mackinder, I'll have to look into that. But the Royal Institute of International Affairs, the Chatham House, and the CFR come up all the time. Scott Horton has held an outstanding speech in Utah, accounting for 30 years of U.S. diplomacy after the Cold War, including every warning by senior diplomats over expanding NATO beyond the Elbe River. Warmly recommended. Right, thank you. I will look into that. Thanks, Christoph. Sue von Snarnock. The Star Child skull is a good example of skeptics raising the bar as not good enough when presented with DNA evidence. The physical features also have nothing to do with deformity or hydrocephaly when presented alongside skulls of those types. Yeah. In fact, one of them actually said they were... One of them actually said to... Oh, prove it, said to somebody. When they presented the evidence, he just said, well, prove it. Like the evidence suddenly wasn't enough. Andrew Johnson's thing on the Star Child skull is very good in that way. Ukraine breaking the silence, Marky Boy. It amazes me how people just buy into the media, even in the face of obvious hypocrisy, fake news, and totally untrustworthy track record. I think the masses do not want to take responsibility for anything. They want to believe governments are there for their good, but we are chattel, nothing more than energy resource to be consumed by the hidden hand. A cabal of psychopathic dark entities, of which, maybe human or otherworldly, they live, is a documentary, not entertainment. That's a good summary of it, Marky. It really is. That's it in a nutshell. And they live, I'm going to come back to. Maybe do a watch party. Okay, Wag the Dog part. Oh, I've reached the top. Is that the end of it? No, can't be. Hang on, what's happening now? Something weird is going. I'll try refreshing. There we go. I'll just. It was called. It's on YouTube. You can get it. Oh, what's happening now? Okay, it's just got a few. I've got a few more extra. Oh, I've got some extra comments here. I'll just refresh. Crafty Nihilist. First on Wag the Dog Watch Party Review. Oh, bless you. Crafty Nihilist. Second. And then 4 days ago. Bored. Bored now. On the same video. Oh. Tricky Who says on Wag the Dog Review, countries aren't what most people think they are. The war is just another Masonic culling of our males. See picture of teen Ukros ready to fight the Ruskies yoga mats and Deepas ready. Yeah, it takes wars take men who have fighting spirit and slaughter them in a pointless exercise. I mean, someone made this point about the Great War. You know, it was all the fittest, most patriotic, most driven men who were were the keenest to go and fight, because they were fooled into thinking that they were fighting for a noble cause. They bought the old Dulce et decorum est thing that Wilfred Owen talks about, and in a sense that got rid of the fighting spirit from Britain. So in the post-war reconstruction, like the Weimar Republic in Germany, you were left, they were left with men who weren't so bellicose and therefore were not able to resist as much. Maybe that was a part of it, That's why that guy that Scottish guy's gone off to fight in Ukraine. Why didn't he stay in his own country? That's where the fighting's needed. Supreme Enlightened Tramp, that's a good name, says on review, if the war is part of some conspiracy, then explain the refugee situation in Poland then. I don't know. I mean, I know that Poland has suddenly had a huge amount of refugees, and not from Ukraine. They've been having them for a while, not just from Ukraine, from other places. So I'm not sure, I'm afraid, Supreme Enlightened Tramp. Jeff Sperry said, believe none of what you see and only half of what you hear. I think it's the other way around, isn't it? Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. You have to watch Rich Planet again. Tramp says to Sperry, don't need to. It's a straight up fact. There's a refugee crisis. Don't be silly now, Jeff says to Trav. Didn't you listen to what Ben said? I'm only saying we're being fed a narrative. Yes, there are refugees, but also, yes, there are also NGOs making the most of the situation. Yeah, it's an industry, human trafficking. Caroline McGreal says on review. Oh, here we have. It's a lot of Bible quotes here. I'm not going to read all these out. I'm sorry, Caroline, but Caroline says there. Thanks for sharing, Ben. It seems to me the hidden hand that rules us this fallen world needs to put truth where you don't expect to hear truth, like in entertainment, shows, movies, comedies, and theatres. Yeah, Caroline, you can say so much in fiction you can't say in fact. Imagine if Orwell had written a book about the rise of authoritarianism and stuff like that. Factually, it would be forgotten. It would be a conspiracy theory. But instead, he wrote 1984, and everyone's heard of that. That's why I wrote the Roswell trilogy. She goes on, and there are lies where you don't expect to hear lies, like the mainstream news, newspapers, history books, the education system, science books, and mainstream TV documentaries. They seem to tell us all their plans in plain sight, albeit in a very abstract way that's hard to see if you're not awake to their tricks. Are they trying to avoid bad karma, coming back on them by doing so? Telling us the truth and their plans and their lies in reverse, upside-down way, so most don't recognise it for what it really is, thereby placing any bad karma on the people themselves for inadvertently accepting their lies as truth. Well, funnily enough, that's exactly the belief system, according to Mark Passio. It really is. That's what he basically said. Their belief system. That's why they give us these clues, because then it puts the responsibility onto us. If we don't react, then essentially it becomes our fault, according to their belief system. I don't think that's true, but that's what they believe. Caroline quotes the Bible here, and then says, "Thanks for all your hard work, Ben. Shalom to you all from Southeast London, UK." Thanks, Caroline. You're very welcome. I'm glad you like it. I really do. Sufon, Jorge Rodriguez. Hello, Ben. People who have problems with skeptics, is that how wrong the other side are, especially if they want you to believe anything, and that is a problem. Ben, yes, there are strange things that people are seeing, but this topic have so much BS. That's why people have problems with skeptics. On other word, believe on anything. If you are not, then you are a skeptic. Well, I don't have a problem with not believing in things and asking for evidence and things like that. And there is a lot of BS, I know. There's an awful lot of bunk, as Sherma says. But as I said, the skeptic movement is not the solution. The skeptic movement is just another level of the whole thing, of the whole issue, as I explained. It's just another part of it. Do you see what I mean? The skepticism has its own flaws. It is its own belief system. And it is very cultic. Remember, indoctrination into non-belief? Remember that bit? Banning TEDx. Graham Hancock and Rupert Sheldrake from TEDx. Phase 52012 says here on. Back on the Apollo Detectives. This always creates lots of comments, the Apollo Detectives. This episode welcomes back Raza Vihari all the way from China to raise important new questions for those who believe NASA's official story. That was a quote by me. Could Raza Vihari enlighten anyone with some proof of any capitals of his claims? Just making a claim doesn't make it true. Well, that's what he kind of did, Phase. Dr. James Van Allen has stated that the Van Allen radiation belts are not a problem for astronauts, provided you pass through the thinnest section and do it quickly. You can read his scientific papers on the subject. His in capitals. Well, you see, which ones? The ones he wrote originally? He actually said originally, it was quoted in Dark Moon, that astronauts would need to be protected. Phase goes on. The belts are only deadly if you spend too much time in them. A lethal radiation dose is 300 rounds in 1 hour. If you travel through the thinner parts of the belts at high speed, i.e. 25,000 kilometers per hour, and pass through in about an hour, the total radiation dose is about 12 rads, hardly a deadly dose, and you can check those numbers. Perhaps Raza Vihari could... Hang on. How do you know, Face? You know because the belts have been studied. There's been considerable study on the belts since their discovery. The problem is that it was very close to that discovery that the Apollo missions were being planned. Nobody knew the altitude, depth, thickness, intensity of these belts, nor did they Nor did they nor did they know what was beyond them. They knew there was radiation coming from the sun because they found charged particles from solar wind embedded in Arctic ice, but they didn't know how much. Do you see what I mean? We know a lot more now than we knew back then. Perhaps Razavihari could be so kind as to provide some links to peer-reviewed scientific papers he's written on the subject of the Van Allen radiation belts. As an astrophysicist, I'm sure he must have done some study on the topic. Actually, any links to any peer-reviewed scientific papers on any subject he's written would be appreciated. Well, I'll see what I can do, Faith. I'll ask him about that. Caroline McGreal. Helen Duncan, the most dangerous psychic in the world. Oh, this is one of my favourites, this video. It's one of my most popular videos. It seems that Helen Duncan's lifestyle choice is an example of how it's best not to get involved with such matters, as it only brings you grief, and also the Bible warns us against practicing in witchcraft and divination. It's an abomination to Yah, God, worthy of the death, who knows what troubles you unleash on your family and community when you get involved in the dark arts. Best to stay away from this evil, in my opinion, and I'm talking from experience in my own life and my family's life on this matter. I have now repented of this in my life, and things are much better and peaceful in my life now. Praise Yah. Shalom from Southeast London, UK. Well, I appreciate your concern, Caroline, but I don't agree with you about spiritualism. I don't think it is dark arts. It's not. This isn't Harry Potter stuff. There are dark arts. There's black magic. There is Satanism. I know, but it is actually quite a sort of a fundamentalist Christian attitude that everything. All of these things are lumped together as the dark arts. No, there's good magic and bad magic. And spiritualism is simply pacification. It's simply the communication with the spirits of those deceased. But which if it's possible, then I don't believe it's evil. I don't believe God created a universe with heaven and other realms beyond of the spirit world, and then made communication possible and made spirits retain memories of the life they've just lived and the ability to see in our world, and then say that we're not allowed to communicate with them. This is another example. This is another example of a theological problem that a lot of people have noticed, that God makes us one way, then commands us to be another. It doesn't make sense. Jack Parker says on Ukraine live stream, the Emperor of Ukraine has no clothes. Oh, I'm glad he does. I don't want to see him naked. And no ethics, possibly. Litmus test, he keeps asking for a no-fly zone, jeopardizing a lot more than unconditional surrender. Yeah. It's unbelievable. He just said, why won't you give us a no-fly zone? Yeah. It's like Jimmy Krankie and Piers Morgan. They're doing the same. Don't they understand? A strategic retreat or strategic surrender, that is necessary. Our vain interest does not allow us to advise him the correct decision. Living under the Putin regime is better than ending the world as we know it. With our complacent mouths a gap. I wonder if the aliens will be able to decide to do anything but allow us to be responsible for our own deeds. It is not their obligation, it is their decision. No, they're not obliged to intervene. There's no guarantee they will intervene to save us from ourselves. They may decide not to. As far as living under a Putin regime, I don't think Vladimir Putin does not want to conquer the world. He says this in his own words in this. He explains it in great detail in this article, exactly what he's doing and why. Jack Parker says here, we cannot have direct conventional war conflict with Russia. Anyone not understanding that is not cognizant enough or intelligent enough to be controlling Ukraine. We need to foster desperate pragmatism in the minds of the Ukrainians. They need to just do an opossum maneuver. They need to pretend to be dead with all their will. Whatever opportunity they have comes afterwards. If it means taking out Putin or just out his thinking, this is the possible with the game of psychology. You see, you can't have. This is what the lesson of World War One. I mean, it's been understood for a long time, since before then. Probably, sorry, for World War Two. Yeah, I started to say World War Two. It's been understood from World War One that we're now so good at killing each other that the anti-war argument is no longer just moral; it's purely practical. World War II went nuclear at the end, and as we saw Hiroshima and Nagasaki destroyed in a nuclear fireball, that everyone realised at that point you can't have these big gun battlefield wars anymore, not with these weapons existing, because they always will escalate to the point where these weapons will be used, and that's the end of the world. That's why there's never been a war like World War II since it happened. Never. And there never will be again. Or they might be, but it will be the last war we ever have. Jack Parker says, as we see in the streets of Russia, they are not a monolith axis of evil. Yes, they are humans with compassion, especially for those who are just like them, in appearance and language. It's like that song by Sting, you know, about do the Russians love their children too? Yeah. Jack then says here on the same video, the people of Russia, rather than jeopardize their world and ours, will do what is necessary, with the same vision that we have for survival. The first we have to do is de-escalate of the immediate threat. Yeah. Jack says here, I am staging to be on the ships and not just to be able to have open encounters and memories from my childhood for physical encounters. Are you talking about aliens now, Jack? It's their decision. They have continual discussions of my health and symptoms of possible shock, disorders associated, risks they do not want to take for many of us, although I can see the courage and have maintained it, while calling the ships after their acquiescent decision with witnesses and my criteria. They could be a big distraction of what's going on in the world by shocking us all with mass exposure in our skies, but there may be more fatalities from shock to those who have not been appropriate oriented beforehand. Part of the reason for the non-disclosure of reality to us. I think, Jack, that maybe Timothy Good did say the cover-up was justified for that reason. That most people couldn't cope with it. I mean, how would they cope? I mean, would this make everyone dissolve into fear? Would it make them go nut? Would it make them go crazy? If you read Roswell Rising, you'll know that different people in different parts of the world react in a different way. So, but that, I'm sure the people, they are thinking that. They are thinking about this. The people who have this secret are thinking, well, can we tell people? How do we tell people after all this time? Every year the secrecy goes on, they dig themselves deeper down the hole. I don't know. As for the aliens, I mean, goodness, I don't know what they will do. I don't know. I know that they're watching us. I know they have an interest in our nuclear weapons. I don't know where that will lead to. I really don't. Jack Parker, Ukraine livestream. Believing is in the seeing, but best for it to be in the understanding before seeing. Yeah, I mean, it'd be much, it really would be pretty... To see something and not understand it and not realise what it was would be terrifying, actually. It would be very disconcerting. Which may be why they have been doing this. They've been, in a sense, the whole 2017 thing with ATIP and TTSA is a part of that. Although, I mean, it's stagnated. It's like we're going through another 2018 again. Which may be why I did say in my last UFO disclosure video, this is just going to be the year of the nudge. However, it's just why I haven't completely lost interest in it, but I am putting it on the back seat for a while. I've stopped listening to Elizondo and Mellon and the others, you know. Helen Tucker says on Pentuck UFO, I rewatched this due to Paul Sinclair's interview with Kaz Clark. I think I'm slightly obsessed with this utterly fascinating event. Thanks, Helen. It is amazing, isn't it? And yeah, I'm glad. And thanks for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I'm glad you enjoyed my particular video. This was actually the first video ever made about this subject. Way back a long time ago, Pentuck UFO. I've done a number of them since. Okay. Oh, here's Marley Pumpkin. Oh, what is this? Oh, sorry. This is something Marley Pumpkin put on the notice of upcoming live stream. I'm going to be deleting this soon, this video, but I didn't see this the first time around. I don't know why that was. But Marley says, your channel is untouched by YouTube because you are so ineffective and weak. Everyone else is being terminated, and you do film reviews. You really are a shell. Oh, don't be stupid, Marley. It's not untouched by YouTube. I've been shadow banned, you fool. And then there's all these other people, and then on the record, all these other people on the notice, which I've already read out on the... I read these things out on the live stream. Basically, Charles says, I'm unbeatable first. There's Nicholas Blair with some spam. Cheers, Ben, says Rick Howden. Warbabe 1951 claps. Oh, sorry, that's on the next one. Sorry. This is Wag the Dog Watch Party live stream, which I've just completed. Warbabe 1951 has an applause. Thanks, Warbabe. Thank you very much. Lemsip says, Lemsip was in the live stream actually. Something I notice when a video like this ends, YouTube then takes me straight onto a mainstream video. Yeah, they do that deliberately. I would rather when the end of the video comes, there is no automatic taking me to the next video in my feed. And I suspect I'm getting videos from channels in my feed that everyone else is getting no matter what videos they watch, such as ones by Rowan Ellis, who's into queer ideology, and Bailey Sarian, who talks about murder cases. I could log out to see if that still happens. You could try it, Lebsipples, but you get a fresh browser and clear all the cookies, because they can sometimes have the same effect as being logged in. But they do that. They talk about linking authoritative sources, and I've noticed that. If I'm looking at something to do with one of the subjects that I look across at the recommended videos column, and it tends to be like BBC, CNN, things like that. That's deliberate. They're doing that on purpose. It's basically a part of shadow banning. Wag the Dog Watch Party livestream. Lemsip says, not sure if I did see it or another film to do with the Clintons on the coach on the way back from London in April 1997. You may well have done. I mean, this was made during the Clinton years, and it was inspired by them and by the way their behaviour. So yeah. Bailiffs out of the blue. ZX81V2 says TV licensing use the same tactics. They do, yeah. Daniel Bostock has done a lot of interactions with them. That's very good. Wag the Dog Watch Party livestream. Lisa Cry Freedom. Yes, we're living through a now Wag the Dog moment. Yeah, not half, Lisa, like you said on your show. Only this time I'm very hopeful the directors and producers are on the side of the good. Time will tell, and very soon. You know, that could be. I hope so. I mean, I know what Gally Lucy said and what we discussed, that maybe the good guys have already taken over under, like, Q and everyone else. And I can't say the word on YouTube, but it's the 17th letter of the alphabet and Anonymous, short for Anonymous, together. They actually are in charge, and what we're seeing now is essentially a form of positive mind control to get people into the right frame of mind to accept freedom. Yeah. Lisa Fry Freedom. Scottish grandfather. Yeah, right, lol. Oh, my goodness me. It's like, I don't buy that one. I think that is a load of bollocks. I do. I think that is rubbish. I think that is he is the good old shoe of this story. Musketeer, hello. I've been talking to Musketeer on Blogger, actually, quite a lot. There were 5 servicing missions to Hubble with 20 EVA spacewalks combined with... This is on Apollo Detectives, debunking the debunkers. Equal a total time of 144 hours and 26 minutes times 2, as there are 2 astronauts on each EVA. That's why the radiation doses are what they are. Yeah, it's also the fact that this is low Earth orbit, Musketeer. Yeah, definitely. Let's click held for review now to see if there's any. We've reached the end now. Oh, Musketeer has one in there. Hang on, I'll just refresh that now. Oh, here we go. Musketeer's other one. That was in the spam folder for some reason. Ben, why hasn't Putin dropped the proverbial bombshell and announced America faked the moon landings? He could claim a myriad of reasons why Russia has had to keep it a secret, but under his great leadership and in his fight against the New World Order alone, he alone is brave enough to break the silence. It's a win-win situation for him. Why hasn't he? Well, Musketeer, that could be an ace he's keeping up his sleeve for now. Same with the aliens. Maybe he'll do disclosure. That would be, I mean, that's the kind of trump card, if you'll pardon the pun, that you might not want to play immediately. You may be waiting for the correct time. Who knows? But I'm sure he could do that, you know. He might well do that. The problem is, if he said that now, people would have said that's just mad Vlad talking nonsense. He'd have to be able to present it in the right way, time in the right way, so that people believe him. You know what I mean? This is the thing. Okay, that's all of YouTube done. I'm just going to go... I'll have another check of YouTube when I finish, but I'm just going to go over to BitChute now. As you know, with BitChute, there are no notifications, so all I can do is go through all the videos I've done since the last comments reply video. So that is basically... Let me just go to HPANWO TV. Let's have a look. So basically that's... I'm just scrolling back to check the nuclear fusion live stream. Okay. So, nuclear fusion live stream. I'd love to be able to go through all of these, but I can't because I have more than 1,000 uploads. I don't get notifications. I can't check every single video I've got uploaded to BitChute. No comments. It's got 3 likes though, which is nice. 3 upvotes. Ukraine crisis. North Pal says, oh, this is a very long comment here. Okay. How do we get here? The US financed the 2013 to 14 color revolution, correct? And ousted former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, headed up by the Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, yes. The Revolution of Dictory, Euromaiden. I'll go into all this in the video, yeah. Victor, oh right, here we go. This just goes into the background to the 2014 revolution, which is essentially was a CIA-backed coup. Victoria Nuland is the wife of the George W. Bush administration neocon Robert Kagan, co-founder in 1998 of the Project for the New American Century. We've heard a lot about that a few years ago. Robert Kagan served as Deputy National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, devised the Saddam had weapons of mass destruction pretense. Robert Kagan, currently Washington Post contributing correspondent, columnist focusing on foreign affairs. Wife Victoria Nuland serving under Secretary of State for Political Affairs in the Biden administration. Victoria Nuland was the lead US point person for the 2014 Ukrainian crisis, expressed her disdain for the European Union's role in attempting to broker a peaceful solution to the standoff between Yanukovych and CIA astroturfed anti-government protest. She complained the operation already cost $5 billion US. Nuland, oh, this is a good one, wanted the UN backed by NATO to do the job. It's what's happened, isn't it? North Pal, yeah. In a leaked telephone call, February 2014, between Nuland and the US ambassador to Ukraine, George Pyatt, a plan was revealed. Quote, it would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN glue it, if you know. Fuck the EU, she said. And there's a YouTube link here. Leaked phone calls on Ukraine. Yeah, looks like the old gang's back. Biden, Nuland and friends. Victoria Nuland admits Washington has spent $5 billion to subvert Ukraine. Incredible. I wish I could say it was unbelievable, but it isn't. But that's absolutely true. Ukraine invasion live stream. 1666 says, "Fuck Russia, fuck Ukraine. This has nothing to do with us." It does. It's going to affect. This is about the New World Order, basically. This whole thing is about the New World Order. It has everything to do with us. 16. Passing through. The NATO flag hides a swastika within its design. Watch this. I heard about that. Yeah. The NATO flag. Yeah, it's like it's very. And so does the UN flag as well. And Woden20 says that the Nazis locked up Baron Louis de Rothschild, shut down his banks and Freemasonry. So you're saying what? NATO against Freemasons and the Rothschilds? I think it's I don't know the details behind that, Woden. I'll have to revise that. I have to think about that. You have to, maybe you can thrash it out with this other guy. Apollo Detectives. TT Foley says, "You're a nice lad, Ben. Lol. That guy does look like you are. LMFO. Yeah. Oh, yes. Shillito, Curious Droid. He is my kind of lookalike, but he's very different from me in every other way." TT Foley also says, "Cool. I went to the moon. Tell you what I saw if you pay me £50 million. That's cheap, mate. That's very cheap for a space mission. Wag the Dog Party introduction. No comments. Skeptic Sufon. John Doe says, "Excellent work, Ben." Thanks, John. Much appreciated. TF Foley says, "Enjoyed this, Ben." Thanks, mate. You're welcome, TF. I've got some good people on BitChute, you know. And BitChute, God, is so much better than bloody... You have it's just like a breath of fresh air. It's like freedom, you know. It's like you have this kind of sense of freedom, which is unbelievable in on this. It really, really is. I'm just going through, checking I've, yeah. Okay, right. Breaking the silence. Check out the system and don't comment. Well, you're not exactly living up to your name there, are you? Check out. Keep figuring this out. Putin seems to know what he's doing. He's going after the bad guys. A bit sloppy, lol. But at least he's going for it. Yeah, that's how I see it. I don't want this to happen. I wish this war wasn't happening. I really do. But what's the alternative? We let the deep state just take over Eastern Europe. Wag the Dog Watch Party review. No comments. No comments. Right, let's go to Odyssey. Now I've got comments on Odyssey on an older video. Now I always, because I only get notices only last 10 days, and so if I get a comment on an old video, I preserve it. I just copy it. This is on Paul. Is Paul McCartney dead? This is an old one. Bob Piet says, in all due respect, check out the DNA evidence. That will make your mind up. And I say, underneath, Paul's son has challenged Sir William and Paul's living relatives to take such a DNA test. That's right. There's a gentleman who claims to be Paul McCartney's son, and he's taken his own DNA. He's signed an affidavit. He's got lots of evidence. He's challenging Paul's family, and indeed Sir William, to clear up the matter once and for all, and they haven't done so yet. Okay, so that's the recorded. That's the old ones. That's the recorded old ones, because I can't rely on notices when they're old videos. Now I'm going to go to my recent videos. Okay. Here we go. Nuclear fusion live stream. No comments. Ukraine crisis. It's not opening. I'll open Rumble while I'm waiting, because I'm going to Rumble next. Come on. Come on. Oh, my browser's now not working. There we go. Right, Rumble. I haven't uploaded anything to Brighteon yet. I think that's the next stage of what I have to do. Here we go. Odyssey performance might be degraded. No comments. All right. It does this sometimes. Ukraine invasion live stream. Open. Come on, open up. Doesn't always. It's annoying. It's doing this now actually when I want to get to the comments. But there you go. Have to bear with me a minute. Okay. Oh, isn't it amazing, Kerry? Okay. Shelley of the Red says here. My fellow conservative Americans, we are really depressed. My fellow conservative Americans are really depressing me over here. You think after going through COVID mandates and being called a white supremacist, they would know how Biden, NATO, and the globalist World Bank set up pretext to try and remove liberties and or damage sovereign countries. But nope, at least 3/4 of the MAGA base is over here, is waiting to invade and or somehow destroy Russia now. They aren't even thinking or putting together the wake-up lesson for the past 2 years. Just right back into destroy mode without so much as a blink of an eye. And stupid as well, absolutely no clue how armed Russia is. The non-thinking ditto heads just following the talk radio creeps think it's all leftover equipment from the 30s and 60s. This is not good, capitals. Currently, how it looks, that basically Biden now has some 75% of our voting political base wanting Biden to be the strong man including where they could even start supporting him before our November elections, like globalist consolidation already. Anyway, your keen geopolitics understanding on Russia definitely helped lift my spirits. Thanks. And keep talking too, because it all helps. Have a good week. And I say, thanks, Shelley. Glad you liked it. In the UK, the media is continuously lying to us. If you've not seen Wag the Dog, please do. It's pathetic. And Odyssey. So, someone here called Odyssey. I don't know if that's the Odyssey. You should start growing a short beard. Oh, yeah, I could do a little Anton LaVey impression. I'm nearly at the end of this hour now. Oh, dear. Right. I'm going to have to go on to the 5th hour. One sec. The 5th hour, blimey. Oh, I knew this would be a long one. That's what happens when we don't do one for a month. You don't do a comments reply. Okay, Ukraine. Was it Ukraine live stream I did just now? No, that wasn't. Oh, it was. It was no comment.
Yeah,
I've done that one. Okay, the Apollo Detectives 10. Yep, okay. Okay, right, so we're on the 5th one now. 5th hour. I won't bother stopping it because I'm nearly done. I'll just keep going. The Apollo Detectives. Just waiting for the page to load. Oh, Odyssey really chooses its moments to have a crisis, doesn't it? Odyssey's performance may be downgraded. Oh, God. Refresh. Come on. Oh, just waiting for this page to load. It's sort of like hourglassing right now. I might edit these bits out. Let's see what's on Rumble while we're waiting. Oh, Rumble's going slowly as well now.
I've been studying a lot how they're going to...
Okay. That's just cheeky Effie Kerry. Says here, hi Ben, you're pretty well versed in the fake moon landings, but have you looked into any other aspects of space fakery tools, such as the LISS, etc.? I reply here, yes, I've covered several other cosmic controversies. I've looked at the ISS issue, and I do think the space station is real, but I'm open to persuasion if I've made a mistake. Now, let's have a look at cheeky Effie Kerry's channel. If it'll go. Here we go, and here she is. This is her. This is she's This is her. I'll show you her actually. She's display capture. She's not bad looking actually, I must say, if you think in those terms. But she did an interview for Hong Kong TV. Oh, this thing I was on.
If you get nothing to do,
is also not just again.
The flat Earth. Hang on.
And they were taught like the Vedic system of cosmology there as well. Like, that's part of Hinduism. So he was quite open to it. And my son's a total flat earther. Really.
Carrie 係今次嘅搞手。
This meet about these. And I said I've lived by the sea almost my entire life, and I've never found any correlation between the moon and the tides. So let alone
flat Earth. Yes, let me just go back now. It's quite pretty, but you know, I can't let you know, some nice, good-looking flat earther change my mind. No, I am open to persuasion. You know, I know what happens when you let things, when you let that kind of thing go to your head, you know. Shelley of the Red says, nice Mississippi blues song. I'm not on screen share anymore, no. I said I chose it because it sounds very like Mark Knopfler's score. It is. It's actually the Mini Vandals is the name of the band who do this song. I don't know if it's a real old song or it's just made to sound crackly like the good old Shoe song in the film. But it's the closest I could get to Mark Knopfler's score on Wag the Dog. I can't actually include that or I just get another copyright strike. But this is the closest I could get to it. It's actually Christy Winters who uses that tune, so I thought I'd use it myself. It's from the YouTube audio library. So thanks for that, Shelley. Where are we now? So let's Wag the Dog. Skeptics at Sufon. No comments. Ukraine breaking the silence. Ukraine breaking the silence. Okay. And Shelley of the Red says, that was great. You both covered so many details I didn't realise. Really nicely done, coherent picture. What a treasure he was. I'm kidding here. But I wish Putin would come and liberate the USA of these Bilderberg and Davos wolves we've been plagued with for so many decades now. They never allow healing, just their New World Order. Yeah, that's true, Shelley. I do think, I mean, Steve Mumbling was joking that I would cheer if Russian tanks drove through Oxford. But as I said, you know, if someone wants, how do we get rid of this? How do we get rid of this deep state then? Are we supposed to just like go and shout and? I mean, the demonstrations, like the worldwide demonstration for freedom, they do a wonderful thing in terms of raising energy. But how do we do it? How do we get rid of this deep state once and for all? And someone says here, this is Christoph. Oh, Christoph. Oh, yeah. Christoph here is on YouTube, on Odyssey as well. Then Russia will have an ally in the West, quote unquote. I wouldn't be certain of that since Trump signed off the Javelin deliveries to Ukraine, tipping the balance, nor did he really do much to dismantle the deep state by mobilizing popular support, presidential decrees, legislative proposals. We shall see with midterms closing in. Don't be shocked by a Clinton-Trump co-presidency. Oh, I would be, Christoph, because, as I say here, I actually put a comment here. Trump did what he could against the odds he faced. He was one man with a few supporters against the entire deep state. When he said drain the swamp, he had no idea how deep and rancid the swamp was. It's a credit to his courage and sense of duty that he didn't turn away at that point. So many others have. He achieved so much to have done as much as he did. Yes, he made some mistakes, but he's human. So many other statesmen have turned away from the outset, like Boris Johnson. I think Trump deserves a chance to finish the job he started. It's important to, what would you do in his position? He's got a wife, he's got kids, he's got grandchildren. There was the fire in Trump Tower. That wasn't an accident. It wasn't a coincidence. Christoph, he's doing what he can. He's not a miracle worker. And Christoph Mahler says, Scott Horton, has just mentioned the same thing that he did earlier about Scott Hortman presenting a great account of U.S. diplomatic history over the fateful decision to cross the Elbe River, protested in the 1997 by George Kennan, architect of the Cold War containment strategy. Yeah, I'm going to look into that. Thank you very much, Christoph. Okay. And finally, Wag the Dog Watch Party review. Okay, so now we're going to go now to Rumble. Nuclear fusion live stream. No comments. Oh, reply to comments 54. I uploaded this to Rumble. No comments. Ukraine crisis. No comments. Ukraine invasion live stream. I know I've got some comments on here somewhere because no comments. I wonder if I just got to do they appear after I let the page load fully? I don't know. Nope. Wag the Dog Watch Party introduction. No comments. Well, whoever the person was who put the comments on, they've deleted them. I remember distinctly a number of comments. Some guy did post a number of comments on here. Nope. No comments on the Polar Detectives. Ukraine breaking the silence. Oh, Imari, this is it. That was interesting. How do I reply to this? Thank you both. I was relieved to... Oh, here we are. I was relieved to hear a discussion which did not work in an anti-Russian framework. I'd love to know more about the hiding of crimes by those who seem to have had the power in Ukraine since 2014. Connects to Biden and son, maybe others. Once again, not the people, but the powerful. Yeah. And I say, you're welcome, Imran. Glad you liked it. It's probably why Hunter Biden shows Burisma and the Ukrainian Energy Department help launder his shady dealings. I wouldn't be surprised if he has another laptop in Kiev somewhere and Putin's trying to recover it. Georgiou says, it's possible to counteract or cancel out low frequency with a higher... Is it possible to counter... All right, okay, all right. I've got to... Can't repeat the question, so I'll put in 2 spots there. To counteract or cancel out a low frequency with a high frequency? No. The only way is to use the same frequency. So the only way to get rid of the evil bureau frequency is by using the same frequency. Khazarian Mafia neo-Nazis versus the NATO UN. Any that are left after that will be of a higher frequency. And I say, from what I can see, Georgie, the Khazar Mafia Nazis are actually the UN and NATO. And Georgiou says, yes, that's kind of my point. I didn't make it clear. I think the only way that these to get these good guys to go then turning in on themselves and imploding, thanks to the reply. And I say, you're welcome, interesting idea, hope it works. And Arm3 Texas says, it's disgusting the level of lies and misinformation the Americans still fall for. They want to see both sides but can't unglue themselves with... oh, here we go. All right, okay, I've got to put 3. Unglue themselves. Fair and balanced Fox. Watching a video like this is too long, yet they stare at Fox all day. I don't get it. Yeah, and I say it's very frustrating. It's the result of a century of psychological warfare in schools, the media, and popular culture. It has changed the people into very mentally weak individuals. And that's Rumble done. So that's all of them. I'm now going to go back to YouTube and just refresh. Nothing there. I'll just check. I'll just do a check with the actual homepage notifications because they tend to be more accurate. And then, if there's none there, we're done.
This flyer that's been distributed around.
Let's have a look. Oh, Phase. Here we are. Phased. What's his name? Did Phase 520 has actually replied here. 25 minutes ago. Thanks for your comment. It will be answered approximately within the 4th hour of the... This is a quote from me. Upcoming comments reply video, unquote. He's already started that all his work for the Chinese government, who are just a super group of people. It's classified, so I look forward to the answer. Right, and I'll just reply here. Thanks for your comment. It'll be answered approximately within the 5th hour of the upcoming comments reply video. And that's it. That brings us to the end of this rather long comments reply video, but I'm also a very quiet one. I'm sorry about the volume on the mic. I'm going to see if I can get it sorted. Maybe if I just restart the computer, that'll do the trick. I don't know. It's audible though. You just got to put the volume up a bit. That's all you have to do. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, thank you all of you for watching, and thank you all for your comments, which by its very definition, if it wasn't for you doing that, then this video would not take place. Have a pleasant evening, morning, evening, night. It's now 1:45 in the morning and I'm tired. Luckily, I've only got to work 2 hours tomorrow, even though it's Sunday. Thank you all for watching HPANWO TV. Oh, yeah, what's coming up this week? Oh, I'm hoping to do... I don't know, I've got some plans. What were they? More watch parties, yeah. Oh, and another live stream about... what was it? I'm going to do a live stream about... cryonics, and also another watch party about They Live, and also someone wants me to do a live stream on MH370, the Malaysian Airlines plane, so we'll do that at some point as well. Maybe I could do 2 next weekend or something. Anyway, thank you all of you for watching HPANWO TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.